Hello everyone and welcome back. It's good to see you here again. We're having a little bit of a different day today. We're going to have a little walk around Edinburgh. Edinburgh is such a beautiful place. In fact, it was so beautiful that we decided to move here 11 years ago. Amazingly how time flies. We used to live in a place called Chichester, which was right on the south coast of England. So it was quite a fair move, quite a long way for Britain, that is, to move here. But it's such an incredible place, Edinburgh, and full of history. And if you get the chance to visit here, it's well worth doing. So right here is really the entrance to the main city of Edinburgh, the old city of Edinburgh. And to my left here, you have the famous wall called the Flodden Wall. And it was a wall designed to protect the city, initially against bandits and marauding pirates, really. But in later years, it became the sort of defence against the English. But it's a very, very thick wall. So everyone in the old days was behind this wall, being protected by it. So here's another view of the Flodden Wall, and you can see how enormous it was. They really meant business in those days. Very thick wall as well, but you're not going to climb over that very easily. We're at a place now called the Vennel, and it's a wonderful set of stairs that goes right down into the Grassmarket, one of the popular pub haunts of the city. And I think it's one of the best views of the city here, particularly the going down part of it and then looking straight up at the castle, which is incredibly imposing from this position. I think more imposing than any other view in the city. And to the right here, you've got the stage that's all being set for the military tattoo, which takes place in August. A great experience for anyone to come along. But it really is one of my favourite spots in the whole city, this. So we've come down the steps now from the Vennel and we've come into the Grassmarket here to another one of the great views of Edinburgh Castle here. So the Grassmarket looking up to the castle, and it's so imposing, it really feels like it's weighing down on you. A wonderful scene. And next to the Grassmarket really is the sort of pub, sort of restauranty sort of place of Edinburgh. Very popular place, particularly at night. A lot of Airbnbs around here too. We'll take a little walk up the Grassmarket, and it's very oldie-woldy. And I love the plane tree here, which is super. It reminds me quite a lot of London. London has a huge number of plane trees. And they were planted in order to clean the air up, really. And the bark is very clever on plane trees, that it peels off. And it peels off all the contaminants and it just drops it off. So they're used in very dirty cities, which Edinburgh isn't anymore. So here's the bark of the plane tree, and you can see that these little bits of bark, they fall off, and inside that's where all the contaminants were. So it's a way for the tree to survive, really, and then it just drops on the ground. So here we are at my next nice location, I think, in Edinburgh. I've done a couple of paintings here. One of my favourite parts of it is the curving of the street. Really interesting, very old-fashioned street. And this street is interesting with Harry Potter interest, in that this was the basis of Diagon Alley, and you can see why, really. And just here behind me is one of the water fountains. And that's a really interesting part of Edinburgh. Everyone used to get their fresh water from here, and the water came from the Pentlands quite a long way away. And interestingly, they had piping made of wood, so it was hollowed out trunks of wood, and they connected them into each other, but they stretched miles, so an incredible engineering feat without the cast iron pipes of the next generations. We walk up the street here quickly, and you can see how the street curves around the corner so beautifully, and the buildings are painted so wonderfully colourful these days. Just over there is the Harry Potter shop, my son's shop. You might know that my name is James Potter, so it's become popularised, my name, quite a lot. So there's quite a lot of references in Edinburgh with me. So we'll have a little walk up the street.
So we've left the Grassmarket and battled our way up to the beginning of the Royal Mile, just by the castle here. This road goes all the way down to Holyrood Palace, which is the official royal residence of the monarchy when they're here in Edinburgh. Sometimes we actually go through the gates there and you get a fantastic view across to Princes Street. But at the moment, they're only letting people in who've got tickets to have a look at the castle, which is actually worth having a look round if you ever come to Edinburgh. They've got the Scottish crown jewels there, which aren't quite as impressive as the English ones, but still worth having a look at.
And here's one of the most prestigious places in Edinburgh. It's really a cracking place. And it's right at the top of the Royal Mile by the castle, and it overlooks the city and the river and the sea and Fife. It's absolutely an incredible place to live. I'd love to live here.
Though they do have to put up with the crashing and banging and the bagpipes during August.
We've come down from the castle along Ramsey Lane, and it's a wonderful little, very steep street, and it opens up to this fantastic view. And my favourite view in the city, really, partly because it's got the National Gallery in it, and I have a bit of a connection with that. I love the National Gallery here. Got some great paintings in there, and one of the great things about British galleries is that they're free as well. And you go anywhere else in the world, and they're definitely not free. But all art galleries are, almost all art galleries here, state-run ones, are free. Including the National Gallery in London and the Tate, all free. And we'll have a look inside soon to see some of my favourite paintings as well. And then you've got the Scott Monument, the big tower. That's a very famous site of Edinburgh. And going around to the Balmoral, and then right around the corner, not sure whether you can see that, you've got Calton Hill there. But we'll go up Calton Hill as well. It's a wonderful place. So here's a better view of the National Gallery here. Wonderful building. The stone is a little bit of a yellow stone, very different from a lot of Edinburgh stone. A lot of Edinburgh stone is quite brown, really, so this is slightly yellower, and I think much nicer as well. Again, wonderful architecture. And there, right in the centre of the screen, you have the second art gallery in Edinburgh, the Royal Academy, and another wonderful building, and that runs right along the front of Princes Street. Here's a great view of Edinburgh Waverley train station, a wonderful view. I never tire of this view, it's always interesting. I think it's the trains going and the noises of it and maybe my train spotting nature. But, a lovely view, and you see Balmoral Hotel in the distance too. A wonderful sight, and I could just stand here for ages looking at those trains. This painting's always caught my eye in the National Gallery. It's by El Greco, who was a painter a long, long time ago. His dates were 1541 to 1614, so a really long time ago. And what's interesting about him is that he was the sort of forerunner of modern art. And you can see that has a modern art look about it, very different from Raphael or that sort of thing. It's a modern take, a very long time ago. So here's a truly wonderful painting by Rubens, and it's one of his sketches which I admire so much. The looseness of it and the way he's sort of captures such a complicated scene so easily. Rubens was a terrific painter, one of the greatest of all time. But one of the problems with Rubens is that it's such a long time ago we can't interpret with his eyes. But wonderful picture. So here's another one of my favourite paintings in the gallery. It's by Rubens, and it's a portrait of an old man. And wow, what a picture. I used to love portrait painting, and this picture here has so much, it's incredible. The way that the clothes have been put in, the glazing that he's done, and the hairs, the individual hairs that he's put on it. He hasn't depicted all the hairs, just some of them, and that's been enough to give an incredibly convincing picture. The nose is so good, and the ear is amazing. Everything is just fantastic. Rubens was out of this world. And this is my favourite painting in the National Gallery here, by Van Gogh, and it's of olive trees. And the way he's done it, the simplicity of how he's done it, it's really moved into my watercolour painting as well. And this painting is one of the reasons why I paint simply, in that it's such a marvellous picture, but there's no detail in it, and there's lots of colour. And he was the one who said a tree doesn't have to have detail to know that it's a tree, and that's exactly what that one shows.
Well, that was fun having a quick visit to the gallery. We're now back outside overlooking the gardens. I think it could be coffee time though.
Hope you enjoyed that little visit into the National Gallery. It's a wonderful place. As I say, it's one of my favourite places in Edinburgh, and I go there often. It's amazing how going in there you find new things and new ideas, really. You come up with an idea when you see paintings, and I think looking at paintings in galleries and in books is such an important part of the whole art process, really, and it's a real teaching process. So here again is a lovely view of the Mound and the National Gallery. You've got the castle right behind as well, and I've seen some wonderful paintings of this scene. I've never done a painting of this scene yet. It's just so complicated, but I'm sure I will in due course. But really beautiful. There was a painting that I saw once by a chap called Adam Bruce Thompson, who's a really wonderful sort of mid-20th century painter, really, and he did a lot of watercolours of Edinburgh and Scotland in general, as well as oil painted. Really fantastic painter, and by coincidence at the City Art Gallery, which is that building over there, don't you see it in the distance there, there's an exhibition about Adam Bruce Thompson, and he's one of my favourite artists, and he did some wonderful watercolours, and I'm very inspired by that chap. So let's go and have a look at the exhibition now. Short distance walk, but in a lovely spot. So here's another interesting view of the city. Not necessarily my favourite view, but a really interesting one nevertheless. And it looks up towards St Giles Cathedral, and you can see it's the one with the little crown. That building there is the cathedral on the Royal Mile. And what's interesting about this spot is that Instagram must have got hold of it or something, and you see so many people posing around here. There are lots of better scenes here, but it seems to be the most photographed and Instagrammable place that is in Edinburgh. One of the interesting points about Edinburgh, when Tanya and I left this morning, we thought we'd have a little wander around Edinburgh and talk about one or two of the things here, but what I didn't realise was how many things you could talk about and how many things you could see in Edinburgh. You could do a video here for hours and hours and hours, and you still wouldn't get it all. Here's a fantastic painting by Adam Bruce Thompson, and this is of Colinton Bridge. And if you go back a few reels, I did a painting here, but the other side of it. And that was a great view, but I intend to do a picture from this side soon, so this is a good inspiration for it. But the way he's painted it is so simple, but so effective. This painting here is an inspiration to me. It's absolutely awesome. The way he's put the watercolour down so fluently, so brilliantly. I think it's his best watercolour that I've seen, and it really gives that sense of waves crashing in. Beautiful painting. It reminds me of Iona and that sort of area where he's left the white paint or the white paper to show the froth and foam of the dramatic water. What's wonderful about this painting is this area. Love that. The way he's put the rocks on so simply, beautifully done, and the way he's left the white of the paper out. Fantastic picture. I think the birds are an afterthought. I think he got back to the studio and did that. But he's depicted the water as well as anyone. This area here is fantastic, and the rocks, and
how much white paint is left there. A real lesson in how to paint watercolour. This painting here is really interesting as well, and what I love about it is that it's a dark painting, and you don't normally associate watercolours with dark paintings, and this really is a dark painting. It's done in sort of wintry conditions on a dull day, but he's done it superbly well. The colours are so rich in it, almost like an oil painting, but not. A really beautiful example of watercolour painting well done. So here's another really interesting painting, and I know this scene very well. It's on Iona, a small island just off Mull, tiny place, but I think the most beautiful island in the whole of Scotland, the world. It's so incredible. And this is St Columba's Abbey on the island, and it did fall apart at one point, but it's been rebuilt and done very nicely. So if you can remember this picture, we'll be going to Iona soon, and you can have another look at it. Here are two very interesting pictures, two contrasting styles, and that's what's interesting about Bruce Thompson, is that he did experiment. He didn't just fixate himself on one technique forever. He experimented and changed all the time, and that's part of what being a watercolourist is all about: change, trying new ideas. And this one here, you can see, is done with a bit of pen and ink, and very nicely done. I don't use pen and ink too much. I think it's very effective, but it can be a little bit sort of cliched as well. And this painting here is pure watercolour, no dark line, and very effective too. Again, this is Iona. I know that because I know this island here. It looks like an aircraft carrier. So there's the aircraft carrier here.
Well, that was a really wonderful exhibition there. It's about the 6th time I've been there, and it never ceases to sort of surprise me and give me inspiration. And I think inspiration is one of the most important parts in painting. If you're not inspired to do anything, then it's going to be very difficult to do anything. And going to exhibitions and art galleries and getting books is such a tremendous way of getting excited about painting. We're going to be heading up to Calton Hill now, up the stairs here. So here's the most important bridge in Edinburgh. It's called North Bridge. It's right in front of you there. Not that you can really tell. It's been shrouded in this scaffolding and plastic for the last 4 years now, at least. It's been a right pain. There's a walkway, there's a road surface the other side, and it's been very congested. We always promise that it's going to be finished soon, but then they find another problem and then another problem. So it just keeps on going on. It's going to be really exciting when that's open again, and beautiful. So here we are at Waterloo Place. It's a big crossroads really, crossing Princes Street, which is straight ahead, and you can see the Scott Monument there, just to the left. And to the left you go up to North Bridge, and to the right you go down to Leith Walk and everything that's there, including the Royal Yacht. It's called Waterloo Place because of the Duke of Wellington. So there's the Duke of Wellington on his horse there, looking very grand. And as I said, this is Waterloo Place. And it's called Waterloo Place because Wellington very famously beat Napoleon at the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. So quite a long time ago, but it's very well remembered still. So we're heading up the road to Calton Hill, and you can see the tower there, which is on Calton Hill, and that's the Nelson Tower there. And it was built there because of Nelson, to celebrate Nelson's victory over Napoleon at the Battle of Trafalgar in 1805, or is it 4? Someone can correct me on that one. So we've made it to the top of Calton Hill, and it's a spectacular view. And I've said it before, this is a great view, but this is the great view of Edinburgh. There's no better view in Edinburgh. It just has a fantastic view overlooking the city. And to the right you have the Scott Monument, which is the monument celebrating Walter Scott. And then slightly left the Balmoral, the hotel there. And then on the hill you've got the castle and this wonderful monument to Dougal Stewart. I'm not too sure who he is, but he must have been a philanthropist with an awful lot of money to create this wonderful tomb to him. So a really great view. I have done a few paintings here. I don't do it very often because it's so complicated. It really is a mind bender doing this painting here, but you can see it's so wonderful. Oh, the wind's really picked up now. In the distance there you can see the ski slopes of the Calton Hills, and last video I did mention them when we drove to North Berwick. You could see them there, and that's way out the city there, so you can see Edinburgh is really quite small. We're on the north side of Calton Hill now, and we're facing east, looking all the way to North Berwick, and you can see that big hill in the far right in the distance there. That's the Law. That's where North Berwick is, and you can just about see Bass Rock. I'm not sure you can see it on the camera, but you can see the beautiful seaside here as well. It's a wonderful view from the top of Calton Hill, and you've got the Firth of Forth here, which is the sea coming in, and we've got a lovely day here today. Those lovely seagulls, I don't know whether Tandy can fix on one. They're really flying beautifully. Look at this one come. Amazing. Another name for Edinburgh is the Athens of the North, and this is one of the reasons why it's called that. And in the 18th century they admired Greece and the architecture, and they copied a great deal from there. And this was going to be the Parthenon, and they were going to make a full-size replica of the Parthenon here, but they ran out of money, and this is all they got done. But it's a wonderful sight, and I really enjoy it. So there's Holyrood Palace, set in the grounds of Holyrood Park, right at the base of Arthur's Seat, and it's the official residence of the King when he's in Scotland, the equivalent of Buckingham Palace really in England. So here we have the iconic Salisbury Crags, which overlooks Edinburgh. It's really beautiful, and you can see it from so many places in Edinburgh. And behind it to the left you can see Arthur's Seat, and right at the very top, if you notice, you can see these little dots and sometimes they look like trees up there. And when we first arrived we thought, well, they're trees, but they're not trees, they're people. They're a constant stream of people going up to the top there to see one of the great views of Edinburgh. Here we have, I know I keep on saying it, another fantastic view. It's awesome, and we've got such a beautiful evening to photograph it in. And again, you have the Balmoral and then the Scott Monument, and then going around to the castle and the Kirk on the Royal Mile. And then you've got St Giles is there with the Crown, the main cathedral in Edinburgh. And then going round to the left, and keep in the far distance you've got the Calton Hills. But you cannot believe how picturesque Edinburgh is. There's a beautiful view around every corner, and it's quite difficult to run out of. You sort of run out of superlatives really, and there's so many incredible spots. And down to the bottom left there, you have Holyrood and the Scottish Parliament. Here's the amazing flower clock in Edinburgh, just off Princes Street, going into the Prince's Gardens, and it's really beautiful. They spend hours and hours and hours putting these flowers in every year, only to take them up again at the end of summer. You can see that this is about the RNLI, this particular one. Every year it's a different theme. Always great to see it in summer. So this is the view I'm going to do, and it's a great view of the castle from Prince's Gardens, and you can see it really towers up above us there. It's one of the things about cameras, they sort of flatten things and make things look smaller, which is a shame really. But it's the beauty of being able to see things as well from real life, and to draw them from real life too. So it's an interesting challenge. The painting is going to be a range of greens really, with all the trees in the front, but an interesting architectural drawing. Okay, right, we're going to start this picture, and I'll do my usual thing really, just doing a little bit of a box inside. It just helps me a little bit, just to settle my mind on where I'm going to put things. So gently, so I start at the top. Scale is the issue here, so I'm just going to put some rough things in here, because if you get this first scale wrong, then the whole picture goes wrong, embarrassingly wrong. So trying to get the castle. So just try to draw everything to begin with. So there's lots of buildings here. It's quite a complicated scene really. Edinburgh is a complicated scene. Maybe that's why I don't paint it too often really. So it's just a question of going left to right, trying to capture the buildings. Very, very simply to begin with. I don't want to go into too much detail, because if I make a mistake, I've really wasted my time and I have to redraw again. Scale is the interesting part here. You've got to get the scale right. Building here. I can see it's very complicated. Complicated drawing, this one. So many angles, so many little walls jutting out all over the place. Complicated stuff. So it's a rough drawing, really. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this one. Drawing is a pleasure, really. It's something that you let your pen just wander. I'm quite fond of that, just letting these things wander along. Just trying to find hints of things, really, hinting where everything goes. Get some of these trees in, the path behind. There's a big bush coming over here, a tree there. Pathway coming in. I like drawing in biro. It's a very fun way of drawing. It's very definitive as well. You just have to let the mark lie, whatever it's going to be, good or bad. And I quite like that. But above all, I love it not being smudgeable. It just doesn't smudge. And sometimes if you draw in pencil, you can come back to it later and it's just a big blur. But that never happens with biro. It's a very quick drawing because it's the park's going to close any second now at 9 o'clock, which is now. So we're all going to be kicked out. So I've been rushing a bit, and it's turned out okay. I got the scale slightly wrong. The bit on the far right, I've actually lowered and just put here. It should be about here. Scale is the tricky thing. Once you've drawn one part, everything else in the drawing has to be in scale to that original bit of drawing, which is the complex part of drawing, really. So there's lots of trees, paths. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So there's the little sketch I did there, and it was a lot of fun. It was a bit of a rush though, because everyone's leaving the park madly at the moment. So you know that the parking attendants are rushing people out now. Well, we've been pushed out of the gardens now. It's all closed up. The guards came along and saying, "Oh, it's time to get out now." So we just about did the sketch in time. I knew there was a bit of a rush on. But Edinburgh Castle is such a wonderful place to draw, and it's always an interesting subject, so whatever time of year. Winter's great, the snow is great, the summer's great, spring's great with all the flowers on the trees. So it never ceases to please. Such a great scene. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that slightly different video and a little trip around Edinburgh. Edinburgh is our hometown, and it's always a bit strange that we don't go round our hometown. I guess it's on our doorstep, so we sort of ignore it, but we had to get it done at some point. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, and many thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.